When most people think of demon possession, they picture the classic projectile vomiting and head spinning around variety. And while that does happen, it's mostly novice demons that cause that, the vomiting and abnormal behavior being a result of the host's mind rejecting the possession. But in reality, most demon possessions are a lot more subtle. They're the little voice that tells you that you're fine to drive when you know that you've had too much, or that you can cheat on your wife just this once. No one's ever going to find out. Or if you've ever known someone with Alzheimer's who got really mean towards the end, you are likely looking at the work of a demon. Dementia demons are mostly newbies though. They do it because old broken minds don't fight back, so it's pretty much impossible to screw up. And if you're in hell, you want good stats on your first possession. Otherwise, you'll get kicked out right to the back of the line and you won't see another chance for 1,000 years. Oh yeah, the line. Everybody in hell gets a number in the line, and the more evil that you do with each possession, the better your place in line. So if you are lucky enough to get a possession, you'd better wreak havoc and try not to get exorcised or killed. It used to be hell trying to keep track of all the paperwork of who went where, but things are running a lot more smoothly with the new computer system. We're still way behind Earth's technology, of course, but we don't get a lot of computer engineers down here for some reason. But we do have plenty of salespeople though. But before you can even hop in the line, you've got to go through what basically amounts to demon college. They call it college, but it really is more like those corporate training seminars that they have in America. Satan wanted it to be soul-crushing after all. Most of the introductory stuff is pretty boring, like how to take control of the mind of a victim. That really is the foundation for everything though, because if you can't do that, your victim's mind will likely kick you right out, and you'll be back in hell, at the back of the line, with a failure of possession charged on your record. And you definitely don't want that. The advanced stuff is where it gets more interesting, and you get to choose a specialty. Most people go into addiction because it's one of the easiest majors and you get a reasonable amount of time before your host ODs, or just gets used to it. Some people go into mental illness, but that can get you institutionalized, and you don't really get to have fun with your new body if you're stuck in a padded room all day. There's also a dictator class. Professor Hitler teaches that one, but not many people like to take it. Not only is it impractical, Hitler always ends up going on some tangential rant about Jews at the end of class. We get it, Hitler. You don't like Jews. Anyway, Professor Bundy's class is pretty popular though. There are a lot of wannabe serial killers in hell, and it gives amazing stats if you pull it off on Earth. 10 or more victims, and you're allowed to jump the line and possess any body without having to go back to hell first. The last thing you should know about demon possession is how it happens. After all, you want to avoid it if you can. The most common is a Ouija board use. People will actually summon up a demon, and by letting it control their hands, they allow their consciousness to overlap. The demon sneaks in through the window. Now, if it's a particularly talented demon, it can fragment its consciousness and possess everyone with their hand on the board. The same thing can happen with seances. Most demons will choose the weakest link, but some will be able to possess everyone in the room. Anyway, my host body is kind of dying, and typing is getting pretty exhausting. But before I leave you, there is one thing that I do want to tell you. The most ancient and skilled demons only need a tiny overlap in consciousness to possess you. They may only need to converse with you for a moment, or even just trick you into reading something that they've written. Maybe a story that distracts you just long enough for them to slip in unnoticed. You may start to feel uneasy, or maybe even paranoid, when it happens. Or you may feel nothing at all. So let me ask you, how do you feel now? So, thanks to my last story, it looks like I'll be here on Earth for quite a while now. So if you're curious, I can tell you a bit more about hell. I'll also let you know about how I got to know Satan. It's kind of an important part about how I wound up here and where I am today, as one of the most skilled possession artists in hell. Besides, let's face it, you should be curious about hell. After poking around in some of your heads, I'm sorry to say that most of you will be going directly there when you die. It's not necessarily that you're evil or anything. It's more that just God doesn't really like that kind of website. Even as a demon, I have to admit that I was pretty shocked. I did forward some of your links to Satan, however. He's always on the lookout for things to base the new hellscapes on. Oh, what are the hellscapes, you ask? They're sort of like these theme parks. But instead of lighthearted fun in the sun, it's visceral torment and eternal despair. The lines are the same though, except in hell you'd much rather be in line than on the ride. There are 7 main hellscapes, themed after the 7 deadly sins: pride, greed, lust, gluttony, envy, sloth, and of course wraith. There are also many smaller hellscapes based on whatever horrible ideas Satan has come up with. There may or may not be a tentacle-themed hellscape soon, thanks to some of the videos that I pulled from some of your brain's browser history. That leads me to the first hellscape I wanted to talk about: lust. Lust is one of the oldest hellscapes, and it is also the largest. Marquis de Sade is in charge of operations here. Unfortunately, it's been under construction ever since 50 Shades of Grey was released. Hell's management wants the park to be ready for the big influx of lust-related sins when the Grey generation dies off in about 50 years. Right now, they mostly have relatively boring sins down there. Kinda like having the odd fantasy about your hot cousin. Yeah, that's right. Don't worry. It's actually more common than you think. Just kidding. You're a degenerate. But your personal sexual deviancy aside, I'll go on to tell you about some of the rides. Luckily for most people, your punishment is commensurate with your sins, and most people's lust-related sins are fairly mild. Things are a little worse for the rapists and pedophiles, though. There are the mandatory daily castrations, as well as being forced to experience the assault from the point of view of each of your victims. The weirdest ride is being reincarnated as one of those free condoms that they hand out in nursing homes. Now, I don't really know who gave Satan the idea for that one, but when he told me, he was practically skipping with excitement. He just loves stuff like that. Have you ever had a boss that seemed to get way too excited over stuff that nobody else cared about? Yeah, Satan's that kind of guy. Only you have to pretend to be excited too, or he'll eviscerate your guts. He loves eviscerating people's guts. The Lust Hellscape is the first hellscape I visited upon entering hell. This was back when the hellscape was a lot smaller. And I can still remember the stench as the gates opened and I trudged through them. The stench of stale sweat and sour sperm invaded my nostrils and left me bent over retching by the side of the road. When I saw what awaited me there, I turned and bolted away, but I was caught and carried in all the same. I'll spare you the details as to what happened next. This was also the first time that I met Satan. It wasn't a terribly long meeting. He just told me how much he admired what I had done on Earth, and I gasped and choked on my own blood in answer. I just remember him laughing and walking off shaking his head. Now greed. John D. Rockefeller runs this hellscape, although Hell's management is considering replacing him with someone younger. Now, I don't know what I would consider younger, but they are expecting a certain prominent American politician down there very soon. The thing about the greed hellscape is that it's mostly populated by people who were in the elite of their society in the time. Commensurately, Satan created their hellscape to be shabby even by hell standards. If you want to know what that means, just picture a slightly nicer version of New Jersey. The most popular ride in the greed hellscape is the waiter ride. The damned are forced to experience the life of a waiter or retail worker in which every single customer is rude. But they can't quit because they need the money. And after that is the third world factory worker ride. A lot of clothing manufacturers get sent there. Let's just say that working your fingers to the bone isn't just an expression there. I spent a long time in this hellscape myself as a young demon, and it is the second on the list because it is the second time that I got to meet Satan. He had just come to inspect a problem with one of the rides, the one where you slowly get buried alive by gold coins. Due to my egregious greed in life, I was in the ride when he came. He was confused when he saw me. "I thought that you were a wrath violator. What are you doing down here?" he asked. I already completed Wrath, I replied. About 200 years ago. 200 years? Jesus. What did you do again? If you want to know, you can just read my paperwork. He looked at me for a moment like he was angry, but then he just laughed. Not many people have the balls to stand up to me, you know. I respect that. He smiled and extended a hand, and we shook. And then he eviscerated my guts. Now on to pride. Pride. Pride, vanity, and arrogance will land you here. This hellscape used to be rather small and unpopular, but with the rise of Snapchat and the selfie culture, the amount of vanity offenders is exploding. Arrogant, my opinion is right and everyone else's stupid types may find themselves here as well. Which means a lot of people who spend their spare time arguing on the internet have a nasty surprise waiting for them in the afterlife. To atone for their pride on Earth, the damned here have to do a lot of ass kissing. And no, that's not a figure of speech. If you think you're guilty of a sin of pride, I suggest that you cut off your nose and tongue because you definitely don't want to know what a demon's ass smells like. The walls and ceilings are made of mirrors here, and the reflection you see depends on the degree of your pride in life. If you were a little vain, you may only see your reflection from the time that you had a really bad haircut or a breakout. But if you were really proud, you get the whole face crawling with maggots treatment. The most egregious pride offenders mostly haven't made it down here yet. Apparently in America, they have this special kind of celebrity who everyone has heard of, yet no one actually knows why they're famous. Hell doesn't have an appropriate punishment for them yet, but Satan is working hard on one now. Maybe you have some ideas. If so, please let me know, and make it ironic if possible. Satan just loves poetic justice. Anyway, you probably guessed that this is the third hellscape where I met Satan, and you were right. I had just finished a 20-year stint as a slave when he came strolling up to give me a wave and a smile. "Oh, Johnny boy," he half smiled. "Good to see you. How long has it been?" "It has been 82 years. And my name's not Johnny." "Oh, really? Oh, that's right, I'm sorry, James." "It's not James either. What can I do for you, Satan?" He ignored my tone and wrapped an arm around me, grinning. "I was hoping that you could help me with something, Jimmy. One of the rides in the new witch-based hellscape is broken, and the technicians are stumped. So, I thought to myself, who do I know that knows all about magic? Well, my old friend Jimmy, of course." He practically shouted the last part in my ear as his clawed hand patted me on the back more than a little too hard. I wanted to tell him to go fuck off, but I figured that it was preferable to spending another 20 years working in the fields for some rich asshole. So I went along with him and fixed the ride. I'll wrap it up here for now, as I've already fragmented my consciousness into several bodies and I like to go out and enjoy them. Sadly, I'm not talented enough to possess all of you, so the next time that you have an urge to do something that you know that you shouldn't, it might be me that's whispering evil notions in your ear, or it might just be your own human nature. But until that time, relax, listen to another story. No need to exert yourself. After all, a little sloth is no great sin. Now, you probably gathered from my last story that Satan's role in hell is mostly managerial. He oversees operations in each hellscape, as well as appoints demons to head up departments and special projects. He's even considered diversifying and opening a small chain of artisan pastry shops on Earth. Now, I know it sounds like a terrible idea, but nobody tells Satan his ideas are bad unless they like being disemboweled. Now, people say that he was much more free-spirited and anti-establishment in his younger days, always ranting about overthrowing heaven, but that he changed after he settled down and had kids. Personally, it's hard for me to imagine a free-spirited Satan, but that was before my time. As for now, after I had helped Satan with the last park malfunction, he had promoted me to ride technician, and now I got to visit the parks as a corporate employee, which was only slightly worse than visiting them as a torture victim. After doing so well on the witch-themed hellscape, my next assignment was one of the big parks, Envy. Now, the Envy hellscape is reserved for people who sabotage others or otherwise lie, cheat, or steal to obtain success. The corporate culture in America and unrestrained capitalism really has helped to fill out this part of the park with people who have stepped on their coworkers' backs for a small raise and a lease for a slightly less shitty Ford Focus. People in this hellscape are sentenced to carry a literal knife in their back for each person that they betrayed in life. The most ironic ride, and therefore Satan's favorite, is the one where you starve to death in a cage, while others watch others eat and drink outside. And this was the ride that Satan wanted me to work on. I can still remember the conversation. "Hey, Jerry," he flashed that big toothy grin that he always had. "I was wondering if you could magic something up for me." "My name isn't Jerry, Satan. What do you want?" Classic Jerry. "You know the ride where people starve to death?" Yeah, I guess I do now. What about it?" "I wanted to know if you could make the food they eat cause them to shed fire. As in literally." "Food? I thought you just said that they just starve to death." No, the other ones. Come on, Jerry. If you pull my leg, I'll have to pull yours too. Except, I'll pull it all the way off." He slapped his knee and laughed at his own joke for a solid 20 seconds before continuing. "Just head out over there and see if you can sort it out for me. All right, Jared." I wondered if he really had forgotten what he called me just 20 seconds ago, but I shook it off and made my way over to the park. I had just finished placing a curse on the food when I felt a clawed hand clap me on the shoulder. "Hey, Gary, this looks great. I brought a guy from marketing over to take some pictures for the corporate website. Gary, meet Jeff. Jeff, Gary." Satan gestured to a defeated-looking demon with a camera draped around his neck. "That's great, Satan, but my name's not... Never mind. Wait, hell has a corporate website?" Satan scratched at his goatee. "Well, no, not yet. But when we get one, we'll make sure that it has lots of pictures. If we don't show people the good bits of hell, nobody will want to come." "You want to recruit people to hell with pictures of them shitting fire?" "Just like the restaurant Taco Bell on Earth." "Satan, I don't think Taco Bell makes people literally..." "Anyway, let's leave Jeff to do the boring marketing stuff. You're coming with me to Wrath to help me magic some awesome stuff up. It's quite an excellent place, Wrath. Have you ever been?" "I was there for 200 years. "You don't say. So you know what I mean." Before long, we arrived at Wrath. The gates creaked open and I shuddered as I caught a whiff of the all-too-familiar stench of blood. "So here's my idea, Gary. Are you ready for this?" "Probably not, but go ahead." 2 words, Gary. Human shish kebab." "Human shish kebab?" "Yes, just picture it. We stick a bunch of people on a stick with some bell peppers, maybe some cherry tomatoes. We can even use different colored people to make it look nice." What? Okay. But you need magic to hold the stick? No. I already got a guy for that." "Yeah, buddy. You. Come over here, Gary wants to meet you." My jaw dropped as the man who jogged over was no less than 10 feet tall, of solid muscle. "Gary, I'd like you to meet a good friend of mine, Gollum." "Gollum, Gary, Gollum."
"It is Goliath."
I jumped at the sound of the stranger's booming voice. "Goliath? Are you sure?" Anyway, Gary here is going to help magic up you a stick to help people from falling off into the fire all the time. Satan turned to me. "We can only keep people on the damned thing a few weeks before the stick rips its way right through them. Anyway, you two sort it out and let me know when you're done. I've got an important phone call, so I'll just be right over here." And with that, he jogged off and I began my work on the stick. I glanced over when I finished to see Satan laughing along with a young demon college student, twirling her tail around with his fingers. "Hey, we're done over here, Satan," I yelled, and he jogged back over grinning. "Oh, great stuff, marvelous stuff. Come on, Gary," he said, throwing his arm over me. And he leaned in close and started talking in a low voice as we walked away. His breath smelled like coffee and brimstone. "You may want to watch your back around Goliath," he said fervently. "And I wouldn't bend over around him either. It's a little tempting for him to, if you know what I mean." "You mean he's a—" "That's right, Gary. A cannibal." "Well, I don't really mean—" "What?" "Yes, I lost 2 technicians to him last week. Ripped their heads clean off, spine and all. And he's not too happy with you either. You're the one that fixed it, and so he couldn't tear people off the stick anymore." "Wait, but you just... Why wouldn't I bend over in front of him because he's a cannibal?" "Wait, you've never heard of rump roast? Jesus, Gary, you know you're a little slow on the uptake sometimes." Okay, Satan. So where to next?" "Gluttony, Gary. You're going to love it there. It's great. Just great." "Okay, so what do you want me to do there?" 2 words, Gary. Exploding cheesecake. Gluttony. As Satan and I approached the gluttony hellscape, I noticed that it was quite a bit smaller than the others. I had never been to this hellscape, and I wondered what sort of grim horror awaited me inside. And despite what I had seen in the other parks, I couldn't help but gasp when the heavy iron gates creaked open. The inside was filled with long tables laid out with an exquisite feast. Mountains of mashed potatoes, even ice cream that somehow resisted melting in the hellfire around us. "This is gluttony?" I asked. "I don't get it. Where's the punishment?" "They're always hungry, Glenn," Satan said excitedly. "And every time that they take a bite, they only get hungrier." "Ah, okay, I got it." "We'll let them eat real food eventually, though." "Wow, that's nice of you, I guess." "Yes, once their relatives die off, we feed them the corpses." "Oh, okay. How is gluttony a sin? I don't get that either." Satan laughed and strolled over to a small, fat Asian man in flashy sunglasses, shoveling mashed potatoes into his mouth. "This one here, his name is King Jong II. The man yelped as Satan clapped a hand on his shoulder and dug in his claws. "He let thousands of people starve to death while he feasted in his compound, surrounded by guards. Even when other countries tried to send food, he kept it, just so that way he could stay in power. How does that food taste to you, Kim?" Satan's claws dug in deeper and the man yelped a little louder. I stared at the fat, sad little man and shook my head. "Do you think that he likes cheesecake?" I asked, and Satan grinned. As we were leaving Gluttony, Satan handed me a handkerchief to wipe the exploded remains of Mr. Second off my shirt. "You know, Satan, I'm starting to think that you're not such a bad guy after all." And he nodded knowingly. "You're getting Stockholm Syndrome there, Glenn. Now, just don't go falling in love with me. I've already got 17 wives, and I'm not looking for a husband." "Oh, okay, so where to next?" "Where else?" Satan said. Sloth. Sloth was another park that I had never been to, so I didn't know what to expect when we got there. The gates of Hellscape always opened slowly, but it took at least a full minute for the colossal gates to creak their way open here. I heard a sniffing sound and looked over to see Satan snorting a line of white powder off of the end of his tail. "Satan, what are you... Is that cocaine?" "Cocaine? Cocaine?" "Don't be ridiculous, Peter. This is ground up hellhound bones. Cocaine is like decaf coffee compared to this stuff." He patted me on the back about 10 times and then shoved his tail under my nose. Go on, Peter. Have a bump. You're going to need it there. I don't really... Satan flicked his tail and left me coughing in a cloud of the stuff. My lungs felt like they were on fire as I breathed the powder in, until I wasn't sure I was about to die, when all of a sudden my whole body went numb. I looked over to see a 3-foot wide grin on Satan's face, which now appeared to be the size of an SUV.
Are you feeling it now, Peter?
The world was swaying and bending around me, and the air felt like jelly. Everything seemed to slow down as every atom in my body vibrated with intense pleasure. I was definitely feeling it now. And as we walked through the gates, I felt a sudden weight push down on my body. Gravity is 12 times stronger in here, Peter, yelled Satan. Keeps the resonance moving slowly. Isn't that amazing? I looked around and the people in the park were indeed moving at a snail's pace. Many of them with one foot suspended in the air, almost frozen in the middle of a step. We've been having this really weird glitch though lately. Hey, Kristenix, show Peter here the glitch. I looked over to where Satan was shouting and I saw an enormous mountain of a demon with ram's horns and a thick black fur all over his body. He grunted and yanked on a giant lever that he was standing next to, and the gates began to creak slowly closed behind us. The sound was deafening as every resident in the park simultaneously collapsed like a falling building straight to the ground, spraying blood and viscera everywhere. See, when the gates close, the gravity shoots way up and we have to unplug it and plug it back in to reset it, which, as you can obviously tell, is very annoying. We haven't been able to use the main gates for weeks. Now, can you help me out here, Peter? Huh? I'll see what I can do. I cleared my way of some of the brain matter and what looked to be someone's spleen and got to work drawing my runes on the ground. Thankful for whatever the hellhound bones were doing to keep me from going splat like everyone else. I looked over to Kristenix when I had finished. All right, give it another try, I said. And he yanked the lever and the gates slowly dragged their way back open. Now, hold on a second, Peter. We need a guinea pig. Satan ran and grabbed a passing demon, dragged him into the park, as he protested weakly.
Satan, I really gotta get a handle on those reports. The deadline is—
Forget the deadline. You're going to be part of something greater than yourself here. This is experimentation. This is science.
But I—
Now, Kristenix. The big demon yanked the lever, and the gates creaked closed, and nothing. The demon's face relaxed, and he let out a long sigh of relief.
Anyway, Satan,
His sentence came to an abrupt end, as Satan bashed his head in with a rock. Oh, nice. 10 points, Satan yelled. I'm sorry about that, Steve. I just get so disappointed when they don't go splat. I stared at him in disbelief. Hey, Steve. He started elbowing me in the ribs and giggling. Steve. It looks like he met his deadline after all.
Do you get it?
Yeah. Haha. Hey, can I ask you something, Satan? Why, sure thing, Jason. Why is it that you can never seem to remember my name? That's a good question, Barry. Great. I've been meaning to talk to you about that. You see, I'm an ethereal being, Barry. Do you know what that means? No, not really. Obviously, it means that I can make the girls go crazy. But it also means that I exist in 5 dimensions, Jackie. 5. That's almost all of them. Wait, how many dimensions are there? Don't ask stupid questions, Gerald. I'm trying to explain myself here. See, you exist in 3 dimensions, and then the 4th is time. But I exist in 5, which means that I can walk through time like you walk through a hallway. Do you understand me, Gerald? You're saying that you're a time traveler? Don't be stupid, Eric. Time travel is impossible. But you just said, I know what I said. Listen, do you know what happens when you try to travel through time, Billy? Your mind shatters into a trillion tiny little pieces, Andy. So tiny that you can never put them all back together. So, that's what happened to you? That's what happens to you, Jeff. I'm going to teach you. We're going to break your mind into so many tiny little pieces. It'll be great, Jacob. Just great. Why would I want to? Because then you can possess the souls of hundreds, even thousands of people at a time. I do remember your name, Willie. I just don't remember what time I'm in. That doesn't make any sense at all. It only doesn't make sense if you're thinking about it, Alan. Just stop being a Buzz Killington, alright? So, you're saying the names belong to people whose souls I'm going to possess? Exactly, David. You are those people. Just not right now. Anyway, enough of that. Do you like white wine, Brent? Actually, I prefer... Great. Come on over for dinner. I've got big plans for you, Richard. Huge. After Satan sent me through the soul port to Earth, I only got to enjoy the quiet life for a few days before he came literally crashing through my window. Now, I've seen a lot of strange things in life, but I don't think any of them will ever top a blood-covered Satan in the middle of my living room with a giant shard of glass sticking up his head. But I don't think any of them will ever top a blood-covered Satan in the middle of my living room with a giant shard of glass sticking out of his head. "Oh," he said. "I made it. I think I calibrated the jump a little wrong, though. But this is still Mars, right?" Satan, how did you— "The powerful magic of best friends, Jake." Satan ripped open his shirt to reveal the still ink on his rune, along with several shards of glass sticking out of his chest. "I also hijacked a bunch of people's minds to widen the gate between dimensions, then shattered my consciousness into pieces small enough to fit through. But it was mostly the best friend stuff." "But why?" "Customer outreach, Jake. Heaven is killing us in new customer growth rate this quarter. If we want to have any hope of catching up, we're going to need to be proactive." "What do you mean by— Wait. Who's running hell right now?" "I've got a guy, Jake. He's the best. Used to work customer service for Comcast. Really knows how to make people suffer." "That's, okay. So customer outreach is— Come on, Bernie. It's like you've forgotten everything from your Welcome to Hell orientation seminar. You know, I worry about your memory sometimes." A large duffel bag came crashing through my other living room window. "Great," Satan said. "The recruitment materials are here." "You know, you could have at least aimed for the same window." "Tell me about it. Here, Bunny, carry this." Satan shoved the duffel bag into my arms, and I felt something sharp poke me in the chest as the contents of the bag clanged metallically. Ow! Wait a second, is this just a giant bag of knives? "And hammers, Bertram. Don't forget about the hammers." "But why do we need— Oh no. I am not going to help you murder a bunch of people so that way you can get more customers." "We prefer to call it aggressive marketing. We rebranded it, Denny. All the big companies rebrand when they want to do something terrible to make money." "This isn't hell, Satan. The rules are different here. You can't just kill a bunch of innocent people for no reason." "Innocent? What, are we recruiting for heaven? I hope not. That dental plan is shit, Denny. Shit. We're recruiting for hell. We're killing rapists, murderers, people who don't pick up after their dogs, and even that guy who wrote Abandoned by Disney. The worst of the worst, Denny." "Oh, well, I guess you could argue ethically that—" "Exactly, Denny. And the priority is serial killers. We don't want them sending any more innocent souls to heaven. We're already way behind this quarter." "Oh, so it's kind of like that TV show." "Exactly, Dexter. It's just like that TV show I Love Lucy." I don't think that I saw that episode." "Really? But it's one of the best. Lucy's daughter is kidnapped by terrorists and she goes on a rampage with a sawed-off shotgun. I won't tell you how it ends, but everyone dies. Okay, but how do we know? Jesus Christ, Satan, how much stuff did you bring? This is the last thing, Denny. Satan tore the canvas bag from around the package that had just arrived to reveal an aquarium with an octopus inside. I had to invite my wife, didn't I? She's the best one. The other 16 are total hags, Denny. But please, try not to make any more racist comments while she stays here. But I didn't. Okay. First stop is Mr. Reginald D. Wilson. Really sick fucker, Denny. Don't turn your back on him for a second, or I'll put a knife in it. I'm not really sure about this. Just stick to the sales pitch. You will be fine. Satan handed me a crumpled up piece of paper with what I hoped were coffee stains all over it, and I unfolded it. Congratulations. You won an all-expenses-paid trip to hell. Please contact the Dark Lord Satan for travel arrangements. And that's when I pop out of the bushes and bring the hammer down, Denny. Metaphorically speaking, of course. Or literally. Either way, really. So, what is the point of the script exactly? Satan threw his arms around me and whispered, Crystal's head of sales and she worked it up. Just be a pal and pretend it's really good. Okay. But how did she? Don't be racist, Denny. Occupy are people just like you and me. Now come on, let's go kill this guy. We drove like a bat out of hell all the way to Reginald's house, screeching to a halt as soon as Satan spotted the place. All right, Denny, you're going to be great, just great. So follow the script and everything will go according to plan. Okay. What did this guy do again? Don't ask stupid questions, Denny. Just go give your pitch. I stepped out of the car somewhat hesitantly, and when I made it to the front door, I glanced back to see Satan enthusiastically giving me the finger guns. And so I knocked on the door as softly as possible, praying that nobody would answer. Yet, right as I was about to turn around, the door swung open. Who are you? Reginald D. Wilson was chubby, with thick glasses and a polo shirt. I glanced down at the script in my sweaty hands. Congratulations! You've won an all-expenses-paid trip to hell. What? Is this some kind of fucked up joke? Who the fuck? Surprise! Satan yelled as he sprung up from seemingly nowhere. He clapped a hand down on the man's shoulder and the man shrieked as he disappeared into a column of flame. Good job, Daniel, Satan beamed. Let's go on to the next pitch. But first, we should probably let the woman out of the basement. You know what, Satan? Let's do it.